Schachter had a theory that was sometimes called a two-factor or jukebox theory. It was the idea that first the body had to simply get aroused, and he viewed arousal as a very global, general response that wasn't differentiated by emotions until the second factor happened. And the second factor was the person would look around and try to figure out why they were experiencing this unexplained arousal. And when they found something reasonable to attribute the arousal to, that determined the precise emotion. It was called the jukebox theory. It's like the jukebox has to be turned on. It's running, it's aroused, but until you push the button, no particular piece of music comes on the jukebox.
We should be a little disappointed. Losing 7-2 is not good. That's a good team, but not that good. Not that good that it should be 7-2. So more heart and smarter. We played right into their hands. Was that our style of soccer in the first half? Even this, it wasn't our style of soccer.
Researcher Richard Lazarus developed yet another theory of emotion. This one states that our thoughts determine the emotion we will experience. For instance, a parent might look sad about losing a tournament match, but may be inwardly rejoicing because the family can go home sooner. In this case, it would not be the loss that determines the emotion. It would be the parent's perception of what that means. The cognitive appraisal of the situation determines the feeling.
Do you guys know what happens if we lose both games today? Do we play tomorrow? Yeah, we play tomorrow.
We see the role our thinking processes play in emotion whenever we attempt to explain why we feel as we do.
Well, I was kind of mad because we weren't playing our hardest, so like I wanted to, like throw something or something like that.
Sad because we shouldn't have played harder.
I was kind of mad and angry because we could have played harder and we weren't really listening to what our coach was saying on the sidelines. My brain's telling me to, like, I don't know, just forget it, and because we have a next game, and so we'll do better in that one.
Regardless of what causes our subjective feelings, our emotional experience is not complete until there is some sort of behavioral expression that others can recognize and interpret. While there are many cues to what a person is feeling, the one we rely upon most is the face.
The face is the best window we have for knowing what someone's about to do next. It's a signal system that's quite precise. You can capture an expression in a fraction of a second. You can recognize expressions one from another at distances of over 20 meters. So it's not just an intimate, but a fairly long distance.
Paul Ekman's work demonstrated that facial expressions are similar across cultures.
I began my research on facial expression really more than 30 years ago. It was quite uncertain as to whether expressions were like language and gestures learned and therefore different in each culture, or whether they were, as Darwin had suggested 100 years earlier, the product of our evolution and universal. I thought they were learned, and my research proved me wrong, and I did research in about 5 literate cultures, in Japan and a couple of countries in South America and here. I showed people faces and asked them to tell me what emotion they saw in the face, and they all came up with pretty much the same answer. There was a loophole, however, which is that all these people had been exposed to the same mass media. So it could have been John Wayne that they learned their expressions from, not the product of their evolution. So in 1967 and again in 68, I went to what was then a Stone Age, pre-literate, isolated culture in the highlands of New Guinea. So I could find people who had had no contact with the outside world, and they would not have had an opportunity to learn their expressions. The research I did was to show them pictures, tell them a story, like your friends have come. I'd show them 3 pictures. Point to the picture where your friends have come, or you're about to fight. I again show them 3 different pictures. Point to the one where you're about to fight. And then the other task I did was really just to reverse it. I'd tell them a story and say, show it to me on your face. Then I took their facial expressions and I showed them to students at San Francisco State College. Well, the San Francisco State College students were to hear them speak. They had no idea what they're saying. But when I showed them the expressions, they had no problem whatsoever. They could understand them completely.
But our faces rarely tell the whole story. More recent research has looked at a bigger picture.
The need is to understand how the face essentially relates to other aspects of the individual. For example, a baby or a child or even an adult does not have to show sadness in face. The sadness might be best indicated by just looking at the general behavior. In fact, if you want to understand whether a baby is in a negative or a sad emotional state or not, study the baby's or the child's play behavior. It may not be evident in the face that the child is sad, but it certainly will be evident in behavior.
I dragged all this way to not even play.
The way we express our emotions varies with the situation, our culture, our gender, and our social group, and with what we want to communicate.
Take your time and look to play to someone's feet.
There are definite guidelines for this, called display rules.
If a grandmother puts her all into giving a present to a 6-year-old who is expecting a Game Boy and instead gets a bar of soap, it would be very not harmonious for the child at 6 years of age, to show disappointment at the gift. As part of the human condition, our society builds into us display rules so that we express an emotion that's designed to have a good effect on other people.
There are occasions when we don't want to reveal how we feel. And we all know that the facial muscles are not just an involuntary system that produce the emotional expressions, but I can fabricate, I can put on a smile even if I'm not enjoying myself. We can almost always see beneath the mask. But it depends. Some people have stronger emotional responses than others. If you have very fast, strong emotional responses, it can be harder to mask. If you have slower, more moderate emotional responses, it can be easier to mask.
Display rules vary from group to group and from culture to culture. In our culture, there are different display rules for men and women.
It's usually the dads that get up and just walk off into the corner because they know they're going to say something they're going to regret. For some reason, the women seem to be able to stay more calm than the men.
When women get angry, they cry. When men get angry, they swear, and they, hit things and so forth. And so, again, the expression of anger on the part of men, which is very physical, is considered okay. You're angry, so you shout and you swear and so on. But with women, when we get angry, we don't usually shout, swear, hit, but we cry.
It was a difference in display rules that caused an uproar in 1999 when U.S. women's soccer star Brandi Chastain celebrated victory in a very male way.
She, at the end of the game, squatted down and took her T-shirt off, and there was a sports bra underneath it, and everybody, went, wow. Well, there again, it gets to our stereotypes about men and women. If she hadn't had a sports bra on, I think it would have been worthy of coverage. But, I mean, you go to any gym, and that's what women are wearing. So I don't know, what was she supposed to do? Just sit there and wait for someone to give her flowers?
Learning the display rules by which others live helps us to develop and maintain our relationships.
I find myself just kind of checking to see his response to certain things that go on the field. Facial expressions kind of tell me where he's at a lot. You can see a kind of a growl on his face that he gets going, and but I thought that he always handles his emotions pretty well.
I think we're pretty similar in how we do it. I can be a little more volatile, though.
I can be fairly silent about my emotions, and I think that's a clue to him that things aren't going well.
Yeah.
As long as soccer teams lose tournaments, coaches, players, and parents will have plenty of opportunity to feel and express their emotions. As uncomfortable as they may be in times like these, emotions are an essential part of the human experience.